Hey people, it's nice talking. Now, this is just an interesting story I found on Face to Face Africa, so here it goes. Way before Columbus, ancient Malians sailed to the Americas in 1311, or so say some historians. Although it's now widely accepted that Columbus did not discover the Americas when he landed in the Caribbean in 1492, as there were Native Americans watching him from the continent's shore, a more contested history of explorers who went to America continues to rear its head and cause fierce debates in many circles. According to a number of sources, Abu Bakr II Mansa, king of the Mali Empire in the 14th century, led Malian sailors to the Americas, specifically present-day Brazil, almost 200 years before Columbus arrived. Abu Bakr II ruled what was arguably the richest and largest empire on earth, covering nearly all of West Africa. BBC writing on the saga of Abu Bakr II, he left with 2,000 boats by Malian scholar Gasu Diawara notes. Abu Bakr wanted to find out whether the Atlantic Ocean, like the great river Niger that swept through Mali, had another bank. He had traveled extensively throughout and outside of the African continent, already owned most of the continent. His predecessor and uncle Sunjata Keita had already founded the Mali Empire and conquered a good stretch of the Sahara Desert and the great forests along the West African coast. African Guyanese historian Ivan van Sertima, writing on the testimony of Emperor Kanku Musa, recorded by the Arab Ibn Amir Hajib and is transcribed by Al-Omari in the 14th century in Egypt during the pilgrimage of Musa, and on the description of the empire of Mali made by Ibn Battuta in the 14th century, explained. Led by exploration, Abu Bakr called engineers of the Lake Chad who were known to build ships like their Egyptian ancestors. Again, please note, the West African people and East African people, or North Africa, whatever, like the Egyptians, are not separate groups. They're all related. Please get this into your head. And studied all the ships on the rivers Joliba, Niger, and Senegal to help him launch a massive fleet across the ocean. He also hired a large and diverse crew of sailors, traders, builders, artists, warriors, and learned men, and supplied them enough rations to last 2 years. The fleet then went across the Great Western Ocean, relying on a unique system of drum communication. When only one ship returned, with a lone captain telling the king that after several days on the sea, the ships were sucked up by a sort of river with a powerful flow on the ocean, and all the ships disappeared on the horizon. Abu Bakr decided to send off on the journey himself. Abu Bakr II handed his throne to his brother Kanku Musa and set off on an expedition into the unknown in 1311. The emperor gave up all power and gold to pursue knowledge and discovery, historians say. His brother Kanku Musa, popularly known as Mansa Musa, will become the richest man in all of history. Some historians say that nothing was heard of Abu Bakr II after, and for this reason some posit that Malians did not sail to the Americas during this time. But others say Abu Bakr's expedition, the second expedition, is what helped Mansa Musa become as rich as he is. One side says on Abu Bakr II's arrival in Brazil, he decided instead that he will journey across the ocean to rule this new land he calls Bur Bambuak, after the rich gold fields of Mali. The third year in the fledgling colony of Bura Bambuak, the first under the direction of Abu Bakr II, sees its highs and lows. Abu Bakr establishes the first diplomatic contact with the curious Tupi tribes of the region, encouraging trade with them. Through this trade, the colonists of Bure and Bambuak are first acquainted with New World crops, including corn, bean, peanuts, tobacco, cotton, and tropical fruits. Such agricultural commodities will allow the colony to become self-sustaining. Likewise, old world livestock such as cattle, sheep, and guinea fowl are first introduced to the Tupi, as are cereal grains like rice, millet, and sorghum. In 1314, Abu Bakr sends a boat back to Mali to petition his brother for more support. Mansa Musa is impressed by the new crops presented to him and garners more settlers and aid to send to Bora Bambuak. This begins a back-and-forth exchange of Bambukian goods in return for Malian assistance. Agriculture of corn, beans, peanuts, pepper, and cotton will set off a population explosion in Mali that will provide future settlers from across the sea. Although not all historians agree that there was evidence of Abu Bakr II's journey and landing there in the Americas, many do agree that there have been a black African presence in the Americas way before Columbus. Okay, and I want to just say something, that there's also another story that when they did some research on one of the Egyptian mummies, they found cocaine, and nicotine in the bodies. Now, the particular mummy was Henut Tuai. I hope I pronounced that right. And they came up with all sorts of stories about, well, contamination, the bodies weren't handled properly. I'm going to leave this story in there as well so you can look at that. And maybe I'll do a video on that myself separately. But there is more evidence than just this, that there were black people in the Americas. And I don't mean just, at one point they got separated, as in people from Africa traveled to there back and forth and brought with them products and goods. And one of the things you'll say was, well, we don't have any proof of it. Well, we know how they deal with it. Even though, just say the black Egyptians. Herodotus, the father of history, the person who who started the whole tradition of writing history from Greece, along with Thucydides, they'll say, well, when he went to Egypt and said they were black, he only saw a part of it, or he met a group of people who were actually visitors to Egypt and they weren't actually Egyptians. They know all sorts of mental gymnastics. I know I'm getting off the topic a little, but these all interconnect. So, you have to understand the games they play in order to distract and say, well, Africans were never there. I wouldn't put it past them to just say, well, if we find the evidence, let's just bulldoze it and destroy it and say it never happened. Anyway, let's get back to it. Timoko Konate, head of the project tracing Abu Bukhari's second journey, told BBC that Columbus himself said he found black traders already present in the Americas. Moreover, chemical analysis of gold tips that Columbus found on spears in America showed that the gold probably came from West Africa. Some say that beyond Columbus, evidence of African contributions to American civilization include importing the art of pyramid building, political systems and religious practices, as well as mathematics, writings, and a sophisticated calendar. And again, pyramid building. Like, you can find pyramids throughout the Aztec and Mayan empires, in the jungles, but yes, you can find them. And people keep saying that Europeans created Egyptian civilization. Now, if you've ever read Sheikh Anta Diop, he just ridicules the whole thing. He said in his book, I can't remember what the name was, but I'll put the name of the book in the description so you can look that up and read it yourself. But he said, so the Europeans traveled across Europe with all the fertile rivers and land that they could have grown on, didn't do any of their civilization building there, came to the Nile Valley, and then suddenly started building all these things there, the pyramids. And that's one of the things that they'll keep telling you. They'll say Europeans built the pyramids, but there are no pyramids in Europe. There are pyramids all over the world, but there aren't any in Europe. Again, I'm sorry I'm going off the topic, but again, they're all related. Vance Satima cites the Aztec divinity Quetzalcoatl, who is sometimes represented in Mexico as a black man with a beard, dressed in white, who arrived 6 cycles after the last man who came from the foreign lands. Well, that actually sounds slightly like a Muslim, African Muslim who came there, because it would sound like sort of like a person who would come sort of like a religious pilgrimage with a full-on beard, because in Islam it's a sunnah to have the beard. Again, that's just me speculating on that way. Others also say the presence of stone heads with African features, the ancient Olmec civilization, South America, prior to the Aztecs and Mayans, is even more proof. With mounting evidence to suggest of African presence in the Americas before Columbus, it may be fair to say that Africa's relationship with the Americas did not start with slavery, with sailors, explorers, and kings. And I love this head. People explain it away and say, well, it looks a bit like other Indian men. And there was this thing that the rapper Akala did when he was talking about ancient Egypt or black presence around the world. If it were Chinese people, they found statues of Chinese people in the Americas or in Africa, they would just say, well, they must have come there. We may not be able to find the records of it in their history, but obviously they did. But when it's Africans, we gotta create some elaborate explanation like they made statues that didn't look like them, or another group of people who had very similar facial features made a statue that looks just like them. Anyway, I know I've been going off on topic a lot, but anyway, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. I'll leave some of the sources in the description so you can look at these yourself. I'll leave my Instagram so you can find that, and I'll put my GoFundMe up so you can see that yourself. Thank you.